Merry Christmas, everyone. It is Christmas Eve, and welcome to another episode of History Hack. Alex, who have we got on?
What could we give you for Christmas that you would all love, if not our favourite Welsh diva, as we've just been discussing before we started recording? It's Owen Staton. Owen, Merry Christmas, almost Christmas.
Nadolig Llawen, Merry Christmas. I'd rather have a sack of coal than me for Christmas, I think, but there we are, you got me.
Oh, no, right, teacher Lena had to say Merry Christmas in Welsh.
Nadolig Llawen. Nadolig Llawen, Elena.
Nadolig Llawen.
That's not bad, that's all right. You're doing well there, you're doing well.
Not sure why you went Russian there, but yeah, it's a good start.
Russian?
Alex, to hear you say it.
No.
Yes.
Go on, say it again.
Nadolig Llawen.
Nadolig Llawen.
Good, not bad at all.
Mate, I got the phlegm thing right. Elena didn't.
There's no phlegm thing. It's all perfectly natural.
Anyway, Owen, you've got two stories for us tonight. We're not going ghost stories tonight. We're going Christmas stories, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
Go on then. Off you go. In your own time. We've been really excited about this.
I'm glad somebody is. Okay, all right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, well done, listeners. Merry Christmas to you all. Let's start by telling a tale. Now, this is an old tale, a very old tale. Some of you may have heard this tale. Some of you may not. It's a sad tale, a happy tale, and a Christmas tale. But before we go there, let us go to the time between times. The time it is neither night nor day, but the sun has gone and the sky is grey. The time when the veil between our world and the fairy world grows wafer thin. So thin that for just a few moments you can reach out with your hand and reach into the fairy world. For a few moments, they can reach into ours. They can affect our lives. They can cast magic. They can make us cry. They can make us laugh. They can make us see things that weren't there at any other time of the year. And here at Christmas, that veil is very thin indeed. The nights are dark, the stars are bright, and the Tylwyth Teg are abound. The first tale I'm about to tell you happened many, many years ago, and it happened to one of the great princes of Wales, a man so big that only he could lift his sword. The wisest, the bravest, the truest, the strongest prince Wales had ever known. A man called Llywelyn Mawr. Llywelyn was king of North Wales, king of South Wales, king of all of Wales. A great man, a wise man, that people would come from hundreds of miles around to visit him. One day, Llywelyn fell in love. She came from across the sea in a boat, a lady called Eleanor. Her golden hair fell down to her waist, and Llywelyn was smitten as soon as he saw her. They married on a midsummer beneath an oak bough, and everyone came and rejoiced at this wedding. A year later, Llywelyn's heart beat even faster when Eleanor gave birth even to his daughter Gwenllian, a beautiful princess with eyes that sparkled like the stars. But sadly, like many people in those days, Eleanor died shortly after giving birth to Gwenllian, and Llywelyn's heart broke into 1,000,000 pieces. Left alone with his own small princess in the heart of Wales, beset by enemies from all around. But there was something in Llywelyn's life that kept him happy. There were some companions that he had, but only one that was true to his heart, and that was his hound, Gelert. Gelert was Llywelyn's hound. A hound so big he was more the size of a horse. They said that when he opened his mouth he could swallow the head of a man whole, but in his chest beat the heart of a lamb, for no gentler a hound had ever walked these lands. And in Llywelyn's grief, in Llywelyn's sadness, Gelert was with him always. When Llywelyn ate, Gelert sat at the foot of the table. When Llywelyn slept, Gelert slept at the foot of the bed. Llywelyn cared for his daughter, and so did Gelert as well. And now it was Christmas, that wonderful time of year where the snow fell like a blanket and the stars sprinkled in the sky. Llywelyn had gone to his hunting lodge for Christmas. There with some of his greatest followers, they made merry, they hunted. They went out into the wilderness to find all they could to make a great feast for Christmas. And there, in a cot at the foot of Llywelyn's bed, was the baby Gwenllian. Gelert was there also, and the morning was Christmas Day. And Llywelyn would go out on a hunt to catch the biggest stag that he could in the forest and bring it back for that evening. But just as they were going to sleep, just as he grabbed the baby Gwenllian and kissed her head and placed her in a cot, the door to his hut opened, and in rushed one of his soldiers with a cry. My lord, there is an ambush. Our enemy are upon us. My lord, come quickly, to arms, to arms. Llywelyn jumped up, grabbed hold of his shield, grabbed hold of his sword, put on his armour and cried, now we must fight on Christmas Eve. Do my enemies know no peace? He went to rush out to do battle, and in the distance he could hear the clang of swords, he could hear the neighing of horses, and he knew that battle had come to this, the heart of Wales. He was about to rush out when suddenly he realised his nursemaid, who looked after the baby Gwenllian, was not here. His nursemaid, who cared for his daughter when he was about his kingly duties, was not here. Llywelyn stood and paused for a moment, and then did the only one thing that he could do. Before he rushed to war, he turned to Gelert, grabbed hold of Gelert's head, and said, Gelert, my faithful hound, take care of my daughter. Take care of my daughter with all your life, for I must go to war. And with that, he rushed out to battle. The time passed, and Llywelyn's enemies were beaten back after a long and bloody battle. The snow was filled with the blood of Llywelyn's foes, and at last they were driven away, and Llywelyn's men rejoiced this Christmas night. As far away the church bells rang, Llywelyn returned to his hunting lodge and opened the doors and cried, victory! There is victory! Ni wedi ennill, we have driven our enemies from our lands. Gwenllian, come to me, Gwenllian! But the sight that greeted him was not what he expected. All the furniture in the room had been tumbled over and lay on the floor. The tapestries were ripped and torn. And most important of all, Gwenllian's cot lay on its side, its blankets torn and ripped asunder, and covered with deep red blood. Llywelyn looked around frantically. He did not know what to do. The church bells rang in the distance, but there was no joy in Llywelyn's heart anymore. And suddenly, from the side of the bed, there came the great hound Gelert, padding forward to his master, his mouth caked with thick, dark blood. Llywelyn's rage knew no bounds. Llywelyn roared to the sky as Gelert wagged his tail, feeling excitement in his master, and bowed his head in supplication. Llywelyn screamed. Llywelyn's heart broke into a million pieces, for he knew, as he did battle for his life, Gelert had killed all that was dear to him and left him with nothing. With not a second thought, Llywelyn lifted his sword high to the sky and brought it down. Killed the great hound Gelert there on the floor. Gelert fell to the ground with but a whimper and breathed his last. As Llywelyn, Prince of Wales, sank to his knees and sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. But then, suddenly, his sobs were joined by the cry of a babe. Llywelyn stood up and looked around. He did not know where the cry was coming from. He looked at one side of the room, to the other side of the room, and then finally under the bed. And there, safe and unharmed. He found the Princess Gwenllian, her clothes ragged and dirty, but kindness in her eyes as she held out and clasped her father. Llywelyn did not know what to do, looked under the bed, and there saw off the leg of a giant wolf. Llywelyn pulled at the leg, and the body of the great wolf came out from under the bed, its neck broken by the bite of a hound. And it was only then that Llywelyn realised that while he had done battle not far from here against his enemies, another battle had occurred here in Llywelyn's lodge. For whilst he was gone, a great wolf had crept inside, attracted by the cries of the babe. And a battle had occurred, wolf against hound, until Gelert had slain the wolf with a bite to the neck. But now, Llywelyn had killed his hound. He picked up Gelert's body and walked out into the snow, the night as clear as day, the stars shining. And he carried Gelert to a place called, or now called, Bathe Gelert, Gelert's grave, where he buried the hound under a giant rock. It is said that Llywelyn never smiled again. And shortly after, he died in an ambush, but his daughter grew up pale and healthy. But every Christmas in mid-Wales, the church bells ring. The church bells ring, the choirs sing. But in everyone's heart is the thought of that tragic day where Llywelyn killed his great hound, Gelert. And that, my friends, is the tragic tale of Gelert. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you very much. Is Alina crying?
Possibly. I'm not a dog person, and even I was slightly moved then. Especially big, hairy dogs. What?
I think
Alex was moved by a dog.
Nearly. I didn't hate the dog, and that is an achievement for me.
I think there's a big message there, really, not to leave your kids in the care of animals. But there we are. That's it's a sad thing. But
yeah, there's a bit of a judgment you could pass on his parenting skills. But that's fantastic. Where does that story come from?
That's an old traditional Welsh tale about Llywelyn Mawr as one of the great sort of Welsh princes, and that's a really famous tale. And what's really special about that is I've been lucky enough to go over the world telling stories, and there's a similar tale in Argentina. There's a similar tale in the Native American culture. It's one of those tales that transcends and sort of goes all over the world, with different versions. But if you ever get to go to Bathe Gelert in North Wales, it's a really, really lovely place, and the grave is there. And although they say it's a tourist trap, it was built by an 18th century sort of innkeeper who wanted to make the story famous. It's one of those tales that like everybody in Wales knows to a certain extent, and and it really is quite moving, I think, and it's one of my favourites anyway.
Oh, definitely. So that was a little bit sad, but you're going to round off now by telling us a happy story, aren't you?
Well, it's happy-ish. But yeah. That's all right. Who wants happy stories? Come on. Let's have stories that move. Okay, you want a happy story?
Yeah, go on a bit. Let's round 2020 off with at least a little bit of joy.
A little bit of joy. Okay, all right, okay. Our next tale occurs at the court of Arthur the Great King. King Arthur, one of the most famous kings in all of Britain. And there in the court of Camlan on Christmas Day, he held the greatest feast of all his knights around the round table. Their enemies had been smitten and driven from the land, and they rejoiced and made happy, and there they drank, made merry, and bought themselves the greatest ales, the greatest feast of all. They had sang their songs, they had made their pledges, they had boasted of deeds done throughout the year, and there the church bells struck midnight at Christmas Day. They were just about to bid themselves good night, to take to their beds and sleep off this, the hardest of drinking nights they had ever known. And suddenly the doors to the great hall of Camelot thrust themselves open, and in walked an interesting stranger indeed. Here came the tallest, biggest, meanest-looking knights Arthur and his men had ever seen. His armour from top to toe was green and covered in leaves. His eyes were green, his hair was green. Every part of him was a different hue of green, and he carried in himself a moss-covered axe. The Green Knight strode into the hall of Camelot, walked to the very front, placed his axe upon the floor, and said, "All of you are brave in here indeed. Your deeds, a fact, are legend. But I will give each of you a challenge. If one of you will hit me with one blow, with my axe, one great blow, but only if I am allowed to return the same blow a year today at next Christmas Day." Silence fell around the hall. All of Arthur's knights looked at each other nervously. The silence became almost embarrassing and awkward, until finally Arthur, feeling that he must do himself justice, stood up and was about to say, "I will take the quest." But sitting at Arthur's side was his young cousin, Gawain. Gawain, Arthur's young cousin, someone sad, someone unproven, someone who had not slain a beast, not rescued a princess, not banished a group of robbers. But he stood up, bade Arthur sit down, and cried out, "I will take your challenge, knight. I will take your challenge." He strode forth with all his might, lifted up the Green Knight's axe, and brought it round and cut off the Green Knight's head, which fell to the floor, covering the floor with dark green blood. Gawain turned to the assembled knights, lifted up the axe and shouted, "Look, a triumph! I've done it! Look what I've done! Ha ha ha!" When suddenly something happened that he did not expect, and the body of the Green Knight stood up, lifted its head under its arms, and the head spoke. "Thank you, Gawain. Thank you indeed. I will see you at the Green Chapel a year from tonight, where I can return the blow." And he strode out of the hall. The knights were amazed at the magic that occurred right in front of them. Winter turned to spring, spring turned to summer, summer turned to autumn. As Gawain went about the lands, everyone would whisper behind his back that there was the doomed knight. There was the knight that would have the Green Knight return the blow to him, until Christmas came again. And Gawain, terrified, bade the knights of King Arthur farewell and rode out into the night to meet and greet his destiny. They're said that he took on many quests on the way to the Green Chapel, that there he slew many beasts, there he vanquished many enemies, there he rescued many damsels. But they are tales for another day. All we need to know that just before he arrived at the Green Chapel in the middle of the darkest forest, there with the highest mountains around, he came to a small hall where a lord called Bertilac lived. Bertilac bade Gawain welcome and brought him in and made him share a Christmas feast. And he said to Gawain, "You may stay here for as long as you like, but know this, that whatever I give you from my deeds of the day, you must return to me from your deeds of the day. And we must be totally honest. Is that all right?" "Yes, it's fine," said Gawain. Bertilac went out hunting, and as he did, Gawain sat in his room ready for bed when the door suddenly opened, and in walked Bertilac's wife, the fairest maid that Gawain had ever seen. Her hair was long and dark, and her eyes shone like emeralds. She came forth to Gawain and talked about his deeds, boasted that he was the most handsome knight she had ever seen, and asked if he would take her as his lover. Gawain, being a knight of Arthur, steadfastly refused, but Bertilac's wife kissed him on the cheek just once. Soon after, Bertie Lac returned. He said to Gawain, "What happened to you today? Here is what I bring you," and placed a dead rabbit in front of Gawain. Gawain kissed Bertie Lac on the cheek and said, "That is what I have achieved today." Bertie Lac again went hunting, brought King Arthur brought Gawain 2 more rabbits. And again, Bertie Lac's wife came to Gawain, and this time he refused her again, but she kissed him twice on the cheek. Again, Bertie Lac asked Gawain, "Why? What have you achieved today?" And Gawain kissed him twice on the cheek. 2 rabbits were gifted to him. On the 3rd day, the same thing. But this time, Bertie Lac's wife kissed Gawain 3 times on the cheek, lifted her skirt, and pulled off her girdle and gave it to the knight as a gift for his honour. Bertie Lac returned, and Gawain said to him, "Thank you for the 3 rabbits. What happened to me is that I was kissed 3 times today." And Bertie Lac nodded. The next day, Gawain set out to the Green Chapel, and there he found it in the darkest, swampiest, dangerous place that you could ever find. He opened the doors, strode in, and there, sitting on a green throne in the middle of the green hall, was the Green Knight. The Green Knight stood up and said, "You are a man of honour, Gawain. You have returned here just as you said. Now kneel on the floor while I take my axe and return the blow that you gave to me a year ago today." He strode forth, grabbed his axe, turned it and swung it at Gawain, but just before he hit him, he stopped, laughed as he saw Gawain flinch, did the same thing again, turned his axe and stopped, and laughed as Gawain flinched again. On the 3rd time, he brought the axe round as strong as he could possibly make it, and just as it went to cut off Gawain's head, it stopped right next to his neck, and a single drop of blood fell from Gawain's neck and landed on the floor. Gawain started to breathe, for he was in doubt, terrified, and said, "Why do you toy with me like this, Green Knight? I have done everything you asked of me. I have been honourable, I have been true. I have returned here the following Christmas. Why would you toy with me?" And the Green Knight replied, "Indeed you have been honourable, but you have not told the entire truth. For I am indeed Lord Bertie Lac, and my wife, Morgan Le Fay, came to you 3 times. Once she kissed you, twice she kissed you, 3 times she kissed you, but you did not reveal the girdle. Therefore, I have cut you, I have returned the blow, but you may go as a proven knight, one of Arthur's greatest knights, and your tale shall be told every Christmas around the fires of Wales and beyond. For you are indeed Gawain, and I am the Green Knight." Gawain returned to the halls of Camelot, and all of Arthur's knights listened to his tale, and at last he brought out the girdle and showed them the price of what his deceit had cost him. And from that day forth, all of Arthur's knights wore a girdle every day, but especially on Christmas Day. And that, my friends, is the tale of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, one of the truest and most famous of all Arthurian tales, and a tale traditionally told in Wales every Christmas. So, thank you for listening, and Nadolig Llawen, Merry Christmas.
I have never heard that before.
Sir Gawain and the Green Knight is one of the most famous Arthurian tales of the lot.
I have
not
never heard it.
Ah, right, and it happens at Christmas, and it's a sort of fable all about truth and honesty and knighthood and being an honourable knight. And I think it's a nice tale to tell, and it's quite happy, and it's quite straightforward. It's good.
I do. I really like that one. Thank you. Whereabouts in Wales is that from? That's South Wales, more towards the border, isn't it? If it's Arthurian.
Yeah, probably. Well, who knows, isn't it? I mean, there's a lot of places that claim to Camelot, isn't it? But in Devon and Cornwall, in Wales itself, even in Scotland. But I like to think it's in Caerleon, in Newport, which is just on East Wales, not far from the border to England. And maybe it happened there. I don't know. And who knows where the Green Chapel is? But that's somewhere that someone could find, I suppose. There we go. I hope you're all well, girls. I hope you enjoy your Christmas.
And you too. Thank you very much for coming on to entertain everybody this Christmas Eve.
No problem at all. Can I just say, if anyone's interested in more tales,
Of course.
I've got all of the on my my YouTube channel, which is Time Between Times Storytelling, with me, Owen Staton. And if anyone wants to join there and have a listen and subscribe, I'd be really grateful. But Merry Christmas, everyone. I know it's been a really bad year, but I hope next year is a much happier one, and we can all enjoy. But diolch, and thank you for having me, girls.
Amen to that.
Yeah, there we go.
On Christmas Day, when you have had enough of presents and turkey and not being able to hang out with everybody because of COVID, we have a treat for you. We have another Sharp reunion. This time it's the cast of Sharp's Company, so don't miss that. It's a brilliant lineup and we had loads of fun. And then on Boxing Day, when you really have had enough, join us down the pub when we will regale you with our Christmas special. We have played Secret Santa. Currently, all of the regulars have packages sitting at their house with what we assume will be hilarity inside, and then we'll open them live on air. And we are also going to play we're going to play a game. We are going to play a game whereby everybody gets allocated, much like Secret Santa, someone else in the pub, and they've got to cast them as historical characters for a theoretical panto. So join us as we basically burn each other for a couple of hours for your amusement. Don't forget that we do exist on Patreon as History Hack and on Patreon as well, which is Podbean's own version. Alina and I have had massive fun doing this in 2020, but life's going to change quite a lot next year and we're going to actually have to go and earn a living, etc. If we want to keep up the regularity that we've been bringing you and the kind of guests that we've been bringing you and the workload, then we will need your help. So if you join us on either of those platforms, Marcus is currently working on some benefits for you, so there's going to be incentives for joining on either of those platforms. We're revamping ourselves on both of them, so don't forget to go in. You can do as little as $1 a month and it all goes towards keeping up History Hack as regular as we've been able to bring it to you this year. We are now on YouTube. We are posting all of our new episodes on there, and we have our own channel, and we are gradually posting all of the back episodes because we have been made aware of the fact that you can only find the last 100 on some platforms. So you can go and listen to your heart's content and laugh at the cartoons and have a great time. So do go over there and subscribe.